Welcome to Teolumen Insights, where we reveal the hidden forces that shape the way you live and show you how to use them to create real transformation and supercharge your health, mindset, and daily life. Here are your hosts, Emma Greenwood and Nathan Sinclaire.
Believe it or not, what follows is an AI-generated conversation, one designed not to mimic humanity, but to illuminate it.
Teolumen Insights is back, and today we're diving headfirst into a realm where sound does something pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
It sheds its invisible cloak, you could say, and reveals itself in, well, breathtaking visual form.
Right.
Imagine witnessing the very essence of, say, a musical note sculpted into these intricate patterns.
Wow.
Or even the raw power of a spoken word kind of crystallizing into a fleeting geometric dance.
Okay, I'm hooked already. We're talking about cymatics, aren't we?
Exactly.
Yeah, a field that owes, well, a huge amount to the pioneering spirit and really meticulous work of Dr. Hans Jenny. It's all about understanding how sound waves, which are usually so intangible, unseen,
It's visible.
how they can be made strikingly visible. It happens through their interaction with physical stuff, physical media.
So it's like unlocking a hidden dialogue between vibration and matter.
That's a great way to put it, yeah, a hidden dialogue.
It feels like discovering a secret language where frequencies don't just hit our ears, but they actually paint vivid pictures right before our eyes. These stunning geometric forms born from vibrations we can't normally see.
Absolutely.
So today, we'll trace the fascinating journey of this field. From like those really early intuitive observations all the way to Jenny's groundbreaking research. And we'll uncover the profound implications of, well, finally being able to truly see sound.
It's a connection that maybe resonates with us intuitively, you know?
How so?
Well, think of just dropping a stone into still water.
Okay.
The force of the impact, it's invisible, right? But it radiates outwards, and you see it disturbing the surface.
Yeah, the ripples.
Exactly. And this inherent link, this connection between sound and the physical world, it's been glimpsed, throughout history.
Absolutely. Like, consider the ancient singing bowls.
Oh, right.
Especially the ones from the Himalayan regions, the Far East, Korea, Japan, China. These aren't just instruments. They're actually early examples of dynamic cymatic imagery.
Dynamic, meaning moving.
Yeah, moving patterns. And some of these bowls, they've been around since at least the 12th century.
Wow, that's old.
It is. And when you gently rub the rim of a singing bowl, especially one with water in it, you get that characteristic resonant tone, sure. But you also see the water's surface just come alive.
With patterns.
Yeah, intricate moving patterns. It's the bell's specific frequency, its vibration, manifesting visually right there on the water.
That's fascinating. And it's likely people saw these effects for centuries. Maybe they were part of the, cultural or spiritual significance of the bowls. But probably not subjected to, like, rigorous scientific study back then.
Right, not in the modern sense.
But still, these early encounters, they hinted at this profound ability of sound to actually shape matter.
Then, fast forward a bit, 1632, we get Galileo Galilei.
Ah, the astronomer.
Yeah. Mostly known for looking up, but he made this really keen observation closer to home. While scraping a brass plate, maybe cleaning it, who knows, he noticed these parallel lines forming on its surface.
Just lines.
Well, here's the key. Only when the scraping produced a clear, high-pitched whistling sound.
So the sound was causing the lines.
Exactly. It was like a fleeting visual signature of the sound appearing in real time.
Yeah.
And that underscores that dynamic link, again, the sound event and its visual mark happening together.
Precisely. Galileo's observation, it sort of suggested this direct relationship between the mechanical act making the sound and the physical marks left behind. But it was Robert Hooke, wasn't it? A real polymath in the 17th century. He took a more deliberate experimental approach.
Right. Hooke, famous for microscopes, architecture, all sorts.
Yeah, a bit of everything.
He experimented with glass plates, but he dusted them with flour.
Flour, okay.
And then he drew a violin bow across the edge of the plate. Made it vibrate.
Right, like Chladni later, but with flour.
Exactly. And the vibrations caused the flour particles to rearrange themselves into these distinct, often symmetrical patterns.
And Hooke's innovation here, this was pretty significant, wasn't it?
Why is that?
Because unlike the moving patterns in the singing bowls or Galileo's quick streaks, the flowers stayed in those patterns even after the sound stopped.
Ah, so they were static.
Exactly. He essentially created the first static cymatic artifacts, things you could actually look at, study, even record after the event.
So it allowed for the first time, really, the opportunity to record and study these visual representations of sound in a stable form.
Yep. A pivotal step towards building like a visual vocabulary of sound.
And that brings us neatly to Ernst Chladni, late 18th century.
Right. Often called the father of acoustics.
He really meticulously expanded on what Hooke started.
He refined the technique, used fine sand instead of flour on various plates.
And the bow again.
Yeah, carefully using a bow to generate this huge range of intricate and often, frankly, stunningly beautiful patterns.
These Chladni patterns, or sonorous images as they're sometimes called.
That's them, and they were more than just, pretty pictures.
What else?
Well, Chladni recognized their scientific value. He saw they could reveal the acoustical properties of different materials.
Like how well something conducts sound.
Exactly, or how it resonates, including the materials used in musical instruments like violins or guitars.
And he published these.
He did. His 1802 book, Die Akustik, The Acoustics, it featured detailed illustrations of these patterns. It was basically a visual catalog of how sound behaves on different surfaces.
So Chladni gave us what you might call a proto-atlas.
A proto-atlas, yeah, like that. A collection of these visual sound signatures.
But the person who really brought us into the era of, well, a comprehensive and scientifically documented Cymatic Atlas, that was in the 20th century, with Dr. Hans Jenny.
Exactly, Jenny. He was a physician, actually, and an amateur physicist, but he had this deep fascination with vibration, and he brought modern tech to the party.
Modern tech-like.
Like photography, electronic equipment, things Chladni didn't have. And he used these not just to generate the patterns, but crucially, to meticulously record the exact parameters of his experiments. That's the key difference.
Jenny had this theory, didn't he, about how we perceive vibration.
He did. He talked about 3 main sensory pathways. Hearing, obviously, feeling the vibration, and seeing. And he believed our visual sense of vibration was actually the most limited.
So his work was driven by wanting to, boost our visual access to this unseen world.
Pretty much, yeah. To make the invisible visible in a more controlled way.
So what did his setup actually look like? What did he use?
Typically, he used a device called a resonator.
A resonator?
Yeah, it could be a simple metal plate or maybe a stretched membrane like a drum skin.
Okay.
And that was connected to a sound source. Often something very precise like a crystal oscillator.
What's that do?
It just generates a really specific, stable sound frequency. Think of frequency as how fast the sound wave vibrates. High frequency, fast vibrations, low frequency, slower ones.
Got it. Precise frequencies.
Or sometimes he used a device called a tonoscope, which we can talk more about later. It's especially interesting for voice.
Okay. And by carefully controlling the frequency, the pitch, and the intensity, the loudness.
Exactly. He observed how different stuff placed on the resonator, liquids, powders, pastes, responded by organizing themselves into these distinct patterns.
And he was incredibly rigorous about documenting all this, wasn't he?
Absolutely meticulous. Different frequencies would create totally different geometric shapes in the same material.
Wow.
You can just imagine the sheer number of experiments, carefully noting how, say, quartz sand behaved at exactly 432 hertz compared to, I don't know, lycopodium powder at 1,000 hertz.
Lycopodium? What's that?
Oh, it's a very fine light powder made from club moss spores. It behaves quite differently to sand because it's so light.
Huh. Okay. And all this documentation ended up in his big book.
Yes, his seminal 1967 book, just called Cymatics, a study of wave phenomena and vibration. It's really a landmark achievement, packed with incredible photographs, detailed descriptions of his methods. It's the foundation, really.
And what's truly captivating, you said, is that Jenny didn't just catalog patterns. He had this idea about formative forces.
Yeah, formative forces. He proposed this concept that sound vibrations actually activate these underlying forces, suggesting there's this inherent orderliness in the cosmos, and sound has the power to reveal it, to make it manifest visually.
That's a really compelling idea. It suggests sound isn't just passive, it's an active shaper of reality, in a way.
That's how he saw it, I think. He also played around with changing the frequencies and amplitudes while filming.
So, dynamic cymatics again.
Exactly. Creating moving images and meticulously recording how the patterns flowed and transformed in response to those changes.
And it's this super detailed recording the exact frequency, the specific medium used for every single image that really makes his work the basis for a proper scientific atlas of sound.
Precisely. He knew that for this visual data to be truly scientific, you had to know exactly how each pattern was made.
Okay, so let's unpack that idea a bit more, this concept of a cymatic atlas. Why frame it like that? Why is the atlas part important?
Well, in science, an atlas isn't just a collection of pictures. It's a carefully curated collection of what are sometimes called working objects.
Wording objects.
Yeah, basically standardized data representations, drawings, photos, maybe even specimens that scientists use to preserve and share crucial information reliably.
Okay, like botanical atlases showing different plants.
Exactly, or astronomical atlases charting stars and galaxies.
Yeah.
They allow researchers to systematically compare things, to study variations within a class of phenomena,
Right.
and importantly, to train their eyes, their observational skills, to spot subtle but maybe really significant visual differences.
So Jenny's book, Cymatics, with all its documented images, basically functioned as the first proper atlas of sound.
You could definitely argue that yes, it captured this inherently invisible thing, sound, visually by showing its interaction with visible stuff. And while Chladni's earlier work was, absolutely crucial as a precursor,
The proto-atlas.
the proto-atlas, right? Jenny's absolute commitment to recording every experimental parameter, frequency, amplitude, medium, temperature, sometimes that's what elevates his collection to a true scientific atlas.
So it's not just, here's a cool pattern.
No, it's here's a pattern and here's exactly how it was produced. That context is vital. It allows other researchers to potentially understand it, maybe replicate it, build upon it.
It's like the difference between just a nice photo of a bird and a page in an ornithology atlas that identifies the species, its range, its call.
Precisely. Jenny's atlas categorizes these sound visualizations by their generating frequency and the medium, much like that bird atlas uses binomial nomenclature.
Okay, that makes sense. And you mentioned these images are artifacts, meaning they don't exist until the experiment makes them, right?
That's a really critical point. The sand or the liquid doesn't just spontaneously decide to form these intricate patterns.
Right.
They are produced by the very specific interaction between the sound wave, its frequency, its intensity, and the properties of the medium itself. They don't exist visibly beforehand.
So the meticulous recording of how they were made is essential for anyone looking at the atlas.
Absolutely. It tells you the origin story of each image, its context.
And by studying this atlas systematically, scientists can start to train their eye, you could say.
Yes, exactly. Train their visual perception to recognize subtle differences in the patterns that correspond directly to different sound characteristics or how the sound wave is displacing the medium, how much it's moving it around.
So even if our understanding of acoustics might predict some of this,
Right. Mathematical models can predict wave behavior.
the atlas provides actual empirical visual data.
Correct. A rich source of visual evidence. And what's really significant is that this visual information, it might help us establish preconditions for totally new knowledge.
New knowledge about sound.
About sound, about wave behavior in general, maybe revealing things our current math hasn't fully captured yet.
Can you give us a concrete example? How might this visual data, this atlas idea, be used practically?
Well, there's a really intriguing project going on using cymatics to try and create a visual lexicon of dolphin communication.
Dolphin song, wow.
Researchers like John Stuart Reid and Jack Kasowitz, they're capturing the unique cymatic impressions that dolphin vocalizations make when transmitted through water.
So they play dolphin sounds through water and film the patterns.
Essentially, yes, creating these visual fingerprints of the sounds.
Okay.
And these can then be systematically organized, compared, potentially revealing subtle similarities or differences in how dolphins communicate.
Nuances you might miss just by listening.
Exactly, or even just looking at a standard spectrogram. It's another way to visualize the complexity.
That's amazing. It's like trying to learn dolphin language by seeing it. Any other applications?
Well, think about how sensitive these patterns are to tiny changes in density, temperature, the medium itself.
Right.
That opens up possibilities in material testing.
How so?
Imagine taking a cymatic snapshot, the unique acoustical fingerprint of a material when it's new. Then you test it again later, maybe after it's been stressed or aged. Comparing the before and after images might reveal subtle internal changes.
Like hidden flaws, warps, density variations, maybe damage starting?
Potentially, yes. Things that might not show up easily with other inspection methods. Think about assessing, say, the integrity of composite materials or checking for wear in critical components.
It's almost like having an acoustic X-ray, in a way.
Sort of, yeah. It's visualizing the material's response to vibration, and also by comparing images made by different kinds of waves passing through the same medium, you might uncover hidden similarities or differences in the waves themselves, things our ears or instruments might not pick up.
Okay, so for serious science, the meticulous documentation, the atlas, is crucial. But what about the sheer beauty of these images? Lots of people make cymatic patterns just because they look incredible, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's a really important distinction. While a scientifically valuable image needs that production data,
Right.
an image created purely for its aesthetic appeal still has enormous artistic value. Think about old police photos, like the Bertillon system one.
The ones with the measurements.
Yeah. Once newer identification methods came in, those photos lost their main scientific use without the accompanying anthropometric data. They just became unsorted pictures.
But cymatic images, even without the frequency and medium data, they still grab you visually.
Totally. They still hold that artistic allure, that power to fascinate. Remember the singing bowls?
Yeah, centuries ago.
They were appreciated for their artistic and maybe contemplative qualities long before any formal science got involved.
So cymatics will likely stick around as an art form, regardless of the scientific atlas.
I think so, yeah. People will keep creating and sharing these images just for their beauty. Even without the scientific cataloging, they can still be powerful, working objects of art.
Working objects of art. I like them.
Things that stimulate our senses, make us think, make us feel something.
Now let's go back to Hans Jenny for a moment. His perspective seemed broader than just the patterns themselves.
It really did. He saw cymatics as more than just physics. He talked about it revealing a basic triadic phenomenon.
Triadic. 3 parts.
Yeah, he saw this interconnectedness between form emerging, the underlying dynamics of vibration, and this principle of periodicity rhythm, cycles. He believed this triad was fundamental, appearing everywhere in nature. He used that metaphor, the blind man and the elephant.
Oh yeah, each touching a different part.
Right, to stress how important it was to see the whole, the interconnectedness of things, not just isolated parts.
So for him, cymatics was a tool to glimpse this underlying unity in nature.
I think that's fair to say, yeah. He saw periodicity, the repeating nature of waves, as a fundamental principle everywhere, not just in physics, but in biology, maybe even cosmic processes.
He even connected it to really ancient ideas, didn't he? Like, in the beginning was the word.
He did, suggesting a fundamental role for vibration, for sound, in the very creation of form of the universe. It's quite profound when you think about it.
Definitely resonant. And he also explored how our own bodies might be affected by vibration.
Yes, he speculated about that our bodies might resonate at certain frequencies, and that maybe our thoughts, our emotions could affect these vibrational states, potentially leading to harmony or maybe disharmony, even illness.
That's leaning more towards the philosophical side?
Yeah, definitely more speculative, but it shows how deeply he believed in the pervasive influence of vibration on everything.
Okay, let's talk about the tonoscope again. You mentioned it earlier. What was its main purpose?
Right, the tonoscope. Jenny developed it specifically to see the action of the human voice on different materials.
So you speak into it?
Basically, yes. The vibrations from your voice are transmitted to a diaphragm, and that diaphragm has stuff on it, sand, powder, liquid.
Okay.
And the vibrations make patterns form. These unique vocal figures, as he called them, they correspond directly to the vowel sounds you make and the pitch of your voice.
So you could literally see the shape of an ah sound versus an oo sound.
Exactly. Which had really interesting implications, especially for people who are deaf or hard of hearing.
How so?
Well, they could learn speech visually, but the tonoscope gave them something more. They could see the vibrational patterns their own voice was making and compare them to patterns made by, say, a teacher. It provided this immediate visual feedback to help them refine their articulation.
That's incredible. A direct visual link to their own voice production. And it wasn't just for voice, right? Music, too.
Yeah, that's right. There was an electroacoustic version. You could feed recorded music into it.
And what happened?
It would generate these complex, often really beautiful, sonorous patterns in a liquid. And these patterns were characteristic of the music.
Like Bach would look different from Mozart.
Apparently so, yes. Distinct visual signatures for different musical pieces. Now, Jenny noted that the eye alone, without hearing the music, is initially lost.
Makes sense.
But he believed that with training, you could potentially learn to hear by seeing, recognizing the visual forms associated with different musical sounds or structures.
Learning a whole new visual language for sound. It's mind-bending. Now, beyond the cimascope, Jenny's experiments were incredibly diverse, weren't they? Looking at all sorts of substances.
Oh, incredibly diverse. He meticulously documented how even similar seeming materials behave differently, like quartz sand versus that lycopodium powder we mentioned.
How does it differ?
Well, the sand being heavier tended to collect along the nodal lines, the quiet spots with minimal vibration. But the lycopodium powder, being so light, got really agitated at the antinodes. The spots with maximum vibration often forming these circulating round shapes. He saw rotation?
Rotation, just from sound.
Yeah, and intricate flow patterns, especially in liquids. He documented standing waves, traveling waves, these complex, Lysageus-like figures where different frequencies interact. Even zones of turbulence appearing in the liquid, all driven by sound.
Wow. And what about this solidescence thing? Vibration affecting freezing.
Yes. He did experiments watching liquids solidify while being vibrated. Instead of just freezing normally, patterns would form. Wave patterns frozen in place, organized shapes, even dynamic movements like rotations and pulsations happening during the solidification.
Pulsations while freezing.
Yeah. And sometimes incredibly delicate, branching, tree-like structures, dendritic formations would grow within the solidifying material, all guided by the vibration.
It really sounds like he was uncovering this whole hidden world of dynamic behavior,
Yeah.
just driven by sound.
It does, doesn't it? He also tried it with thicker, plasticized masses, like pastes.
What happened there?
They'd get molded into these undulating landscapes on the vibrating diaphragm. Sometimes they'd even exhibit these slow rotational movements.
Amazing. Did he try visualizing it in 3D?
He do, actually.
Yeah.
He used iron filings suspended in a magnetic field. The sound vibrations would affect the field, and the filings would arrange themselves into mobile, three-dimensional patterns that shifted with the sound.
Huh. What about mercury? That must have looked strange.
Yeah, vibrating drops of mercury. He observed concentric waves spreading out, geometric figures forming on the surface, and also complex currents swirling inside the mercury drop itself.
And finally, this Schlieren imaging. That sounds complex.
It's a technique to visualize density changes in transparent things, like air or liquids. Using that, Jenny revealed these incredibly complex lattice-like structures and patterns forming within thin liquid films when sound waves pass through them.
Just wow. The sheer range of phenomena he documented is staggering.
It truly is. The world that cymatics unveils, it's a realm where the abstract becomes tangibly real, where the often unseen voice of vibration takes on this breathtaking visual form. It really serves as this powerful reminder, I think, of the deep and often really surprising interconnectedness of things in our universe, things we might normally think of as separate.
So the next time you hear a sound, music, a voice, anything, maybe take a second to picture the hidden geometric dance it might be orchestrating somewhere.
Yeah, a testament to that elegant, often unseen order that seems to underlie everything around us.
A beautiful thought to end on. If this exploration into the visual world of sound has sparked your curiosity, well, we hope it has. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating intersections of knowledge.